Got a number for you. 59.
59 what, DJ?
Yeah, so 59 is the median age of the average American home buyers. Sorry, I'm going to say that again. It's early. 59 is the median age of the American home buyer right now. Not the oldest buyer, the median, and that's kind of an interesting number for me.
Gosh, I thought that number used to be or was somewhere in the 30s.
Yeah, it used to be. That's absolutely true. And most agents still market like it is, which is why so many of you are wondering where the business went. So I'm DJ Paris. That's Tim Littleton. Today we are talking about the buyer who is actually buying and why almost every agent is aiming their entire business at someone who isn't in the market anymore. So stay with us. Okay. So if you pull up any agent's Instagram feed right now, go take a look. Tim, what are you likely going to see?
It's pretty much the same stuff on every feed.
Yeah, it's things like rent versus buy math, first time buyer workshops, how much do you need for a down payment, posts really aimed at that first time home buyer who's, in their 30s and thinking about their first home.
Yeah, and that's the same playbook we've all been kind of going by for the last 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. That has been the playbook. And so here's the NAR 2025 profile of home buyers and sellers. They just released this. It was released just a little bit ago, a few months, and covers every closed transaction from July of 24 through June of 25. Consumer reported, largest data set of buyer and seller behavior that we have.
And what does it say, DJ?
Yeah, this is interesting. So first-time buyers are only 21% of the market.
Wow, only 21%?
Yeah, it's a record low. It's the lowest since NAR started tracking this back in 1981. So for the most of the last 40 plus years, that number sat around 40% for a first-time home buyer. Almost half the market used to be first-timers, but now it's 1 in 5.
1 in 5. So 4 out of 5 buyers, 80%, your content isn't talking to them.
Yeah, 4 out of 5. And it gets sharper than that because the median age of the American home buyer right now is 59. And it's not 35, it's not 42, it's 59.
I want everybody to actually process that. The typical buyer in this country is right now nearly 60 years old.
Yeah, nearly 60. And boomers are 42% of all buyers, and they're 55% of all sellers. So here's what that looks like. 4 out of every 10 homes are going to be a boomer buyer. Boomer buyer sounds funny, right? But
Yeah.
more than 5 out of every 10 came from a boomer seller.
So when I'm making my TikTok about closing costs for first-time buyers.
Yeah, you're only making it for like 21% of the market, and there's 50,000 other agents making the exact same TikTok. You're not losing to other agents, you're losing to the wrong audience.
Wow, that really hits.
Yeah. One more. So 26% of buyers in the last year, I mean, this blows me away, paid all cash, 26%. So highest share on record. That's more than 1 in 4 people writing offers who don't need a lender, don't care about rates, don't care about things like affordability calculators, right? They're just writing a check.
And most of us don't have a single piece of content that's speaking to that buyer.
Yeah, almost none of us do.
No, that's crazy. And if that number hits you, type the age of your last buyer in the comments, just the number, and I'm betting that most of you are under 40.
Yeah, we hear this stat thrown around a lot right now because it's a shocking stat and it's an unfortunate stat. The average first-time home buyer is now, I think it's 40, it might be 39, or maybe it's even 41 now. Anyway, keeps tricking up. It used to be 30, 35, even if just a few years ago. So we focus on that going, oh my gosh, these, younger people, or I guess middle-aged people now aren't buying their first home till later, but there's a much bigger opportunity for everybody. So before we get to the fix of how to solve this for you, let's talk about sort of how we got here, because it's not a marketing failure, it's a training failure.
And how is that so?
Yeah, so every brokerage training program you and I sat through came out of the 2010s, so maybe even earlier. So back when the biggest buyer pool in America was the millennial first-time buyer. Mortgage rates were 3.5%. Inventory was cheap. Young people were coming into the market in waves. So the whole apparatus around agent marketing, lead gen, social media, all of it was built for that buyer.
Yeah. And then that buyer moved.
The buyer moved. Affordability collapsed. Mortgage rates doubled. Student loan debt, rents went up. First-time buyers just couldn't buy anymore. Meanwhile, boomers, they have equity, a paid off house or close to paid off, low basis, high current value. They're the only buyers right now who can actually make the math work.
So we've actually trained a whole generation of agents to market or for a market that no longer exists.
Yeah, trained for a market that no longer exists. That's absolutely a great way to put it. That's reason one. So reason two is agents don't know where boomer buyers come from. If I ask an agent, how do you find your buyers? They say, well, maybe they're getting Zillow leads or Instagram reach outs, open houses, Facebook ads. None of those reach a 59-year-old with a paid off house.
So where does this buyer or that buyer come from?
Yeah, they come from other vendors that are in their life, like a CPA, their attorney, or especially an estate planning attorney at that age, their financial advisor, their church, their golf league, their adult kids. A decision that big, they don't fill out a form on Zillow. They ask someone they trust.
And that's exactly right. And most agents don't have a single relationship in of any of those categories that we've covered.
Yeah, most don't. And the reason three is actually the hardest one to hear. Agents don't think they're allowed to pivot. So there's a voice in your head. I've got these voices too that say, like, I'm this, I'm a family agent, for example, or I'm a first-time home buyer agent. And you think that's your identity, but it's not. It's a marketing choice you made in 2019 when the market was totally different.
Yeah. And the market changed without asking us.
Yeah, that rotten market changing without telling us is right. Like it always, yeah, asking or telling, really. It always does. But before we get to the fix, here's what I want you to do right now. Just think of one person in your world who's 55 or older, somebody who owns their own home. Maybe they've paid it off. Maybe they have a tiny mortgage. Maybe they're an empty nester in a house that's just too big for them. Just one person. Don't say who, just hold that person in your head. We're going to do something with them before we sign off today.
I've got mine. I think it's my parents.
Well, yeah, I'll hold on to it. We'll get into the fix here right now. So we're going to call this the equity shift. So 4 moves you can make right now. So when you run all 4, you stop being the agent that everyone ignores and you start being the agent the market is actually looking for. So here's layer 1. Layer 1 is called the content pivot. So I want you to go look at your last 10 social posts. Count how many speak to a buyer under 40 and count how many speak to a homeowner over 55 who's sitting on equity and deciding what to do with it.
For most of us listening, the score is what, 10-0?
Yeah, 10-0. And here's the pivot. Your content for the next 30 days is downsizing trade-offs, right? So what your 1995 home is actually worth today, whether to help your adult children buy before passing the house to them, rising property tax implications for long-term owners, reverse mortgage myths. That's a really good one. Equity repositioning, things like that.
Yeah. And that's not the most, easy, interesting, flattering thing to do.
Yeah, it isn't. It's not super exciting, and especially not to a 25-year-old marketing director, right? So all of it is urgent for a 62-year-old who's been sitting in that house for 20 years. You're not making content for the algorithm. You're making content for a real person with a real decision. So that's layer 1. So marketing pivot. Layer 2, I call this the referral pivot. 4 relationships you need. That's all you need, actually. So one of them is a CPA, one an estate planning attorney, one a financial advisor, and one is an elder care or downsizing consultant. So if you have 0 of these right now, build 1 a month for the next 4 months.
So what's the ask when you do sit down with them?
Yeah, you basically say, I want to be the real estate person you send your clients to when they're deciding what to do with a paid off house. That's the sentence, not send me leads, not let's cross refer. They'll ask what makes you different from all the other 50 agents who've maybe called them. You tell them, I specialize in equity rich sellers and all cash buyers. Most agents don't.
Yeah. So let's pause for a second there, DJ. For the agents watching, If you have one CPA or one estate attorney who actually sends you business, drop their first name in the comments. Everyone else, that's your gap. And we all have our gaps right now.
Totally. And that is the gap. So here's layer 3. This is called the listing presentation pivot. So most listing presentations pitch, hey, we'll market to every buyer, most common line in the industry. It's also kind of a garbage line because you can't market to every buyer. Nobody can. So when you walk into a listing appointment and the seller asks, who's going to buy my house? Most agents say something vague about internet marketing, open houses. Those are not good answers.
So what do you say instead?
Yeah, you name the buyer. You say your buyer is 59. They've sold a bigger house. They're looking for one level, low maintenance, and good neighbors. Here's where they're coming from. Here's how we reach them. That's a listing presentation. That's an agent who did homework, and that's an agent that gets the listing.
And the seller hears the difference.
Yeah, totally. They hear it immediately. Now, here's layer 4, the sphere pivot. Open your phone right now. Open your contacts. Just scroll through them. How many people in there are over 55? How many own their own home? How many have you had a real conversation with in the last 6 months?
So that's going to be a tough question.
Yeah, it is. And for most agents, it's close to 0. It's okay. We can fix it. It's also the easiest pipeline you've got right now. It's more fun to make content on, Instagram for first-time home buyers because we know how to do that. It's harder to make these kind of calls, but it's way better use of your time. So that person you're holding in your head right now, that 55 plus person, hold tight because we're almost there. I'm going to tell you what to do in just a moment. So there's one more segment. And you'll know exactly how to reach them.
So DJ, I need to voice a little bit of pushback that I'm kind of hearing in my head because I can hear it from agents watching. A lot of people are thinking this right now. DJ, I already work with older clients. Half my sphere is old, like over 55. This isn't new to me. So what do you say to them?
Yeah, first of all, great job. Second, working with them is not the same as marketing to them. There are two different things, right? So if I ask you how many of your last 10 closings were with clients over 55 and you say 7, amazing, like you're killing it. Now, the second question, how many of those 7 came from your marketing, right? Or were they just repeat clients when, they bought their first home 20 years before that? So how many came from someone you already knew calling you when they were ready, right?
And it's going to be almost always the second one.
Yeah, almost always. So here's the problem. You're servicing boomer clients. You're not attracting them, which means that when that sphere dries up, when people move, when friends of friends stop remembering your name, you don't really have a system to replace them. You're playing defense, but the equity shift is offense.
So even the agent who thinks this doesn't apply probably needs layer 2, 3 the most.
Yeah. That's right. So probably who needs those absolutely the most. And these are people that've got the expertise. They just don't have a marketing system behind it. So let's do the math on what staying with the old playbook costs you. So say you run the first time buyer playbook, right? You're aimed at 21% of the market. And within that 21%, you're competing with every agent in your city who's got the same training that you did.
And that's a very crowded pool.
Yeah, crowded pool, small pond. But now look at the other side. So 42% of the market is boomer buyers, 55% are boomer sellers. So more than 1 in 4 buyers is paying cash, which is unreal. And most agents have 0 content, 0 referral relationship, and 0 listing presentation strategy for any of them.
Totally open lane.
Yeah. Absolutely. So the average sale price on a boomer move is higher. Another good reason to consider it. Transaction velocity is faster because there's more cash, less financing friction. Commission checks are bigger, less competition for the business.
So you're working for less, for more, with more certainty.
Yeah, working less for more. That's exactly right, with more certainty. And every month you spend fighting in the first time buyer pool is a month that the agent down the street who made this pivot is building a pipeline that you might not catch.
Yeah, that's the last line.
Yeah. So, equity doesn't retire. Agents who chase it don't either. So that's my little cute saying for the week. It's a little hard one to hear, but I think it's true. Anyway, the person you've been holding in your head, so the over 55 person, this person owns their home. Here's exactly what to do today. Open your phone, text them. Hey, so-and-so, I was just looking at some data on what home buyers your age with equity are actually doing right now. Not what most people think. Can I get you some coffee next week?
So one text, what, 30 seconds?
Yeah, you're not a first-time buyer agent. That's the old story for a market that doesn't exist anymore. You've just sent a text to a 62-year-old with equity, and that's what agents who run this current market would do. Not someday, now.
So go send the text.
Okay, bottom line, guys, your buyer is 59 years old. It's time to catch up. If you're a city or suburban agent out there, though, and if your firm, by the way, is not giving you this kind of information every single week, or maybe you're just feeling like you're not getting the enough attention or help at your existing brokerage, like Tim and I want to talk to you. So we're at Kale Realty. 800 agents have joined us in the past 9 years alone. So reach out to find us why. Anyway, thank you for everyone. Thank you, Tim. I thought this was such a great one. I hope everyone appreciates it and goes out and finds some of those older buyers and sellers because the market's wide open. But we will see everybody on the next episode of Coffee Talk. So thanks, Tim.
Have a great day, everyone.